After the economic collapse, we were looking for where do you go for more growth? And trade is, of course, a big part of that. And we looked and we thought, you know what? Our biggest, best trading relationship can actually be even better. Let's go there.
We're talking about what could be the biggest bilateral trade deal in history.
The Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, also known as TTIP.
A deal that will have a greater impact than all the other trade deals on the table put together.
Shaping the way we work and the way we live our daily lives.
We intend to move forward fast. We can say that neither of us will give up content for the sake of speed, but we intend to make rapid progress.
This is a once-in-a-generation prize, and we are determined to seize it.
We'll find solutions to thorny issues. We'll keep our eyes on the prize, and we'll succeed.
We give America pizza, they give us Dominos. We give them Beaujolais, they give us Pepsi Max. We give them Gerard Depardieu, and they give us Angelina Jolie. Trade isn't always balanced, but free trade has its benefits, even if we don't like everything we receive.
TTIP, first and foremost, is intended to take away barriers in what is already a huge flow of goods traded and investments crossing the ocean. And so if we can simplify the bureaucratic process, take away barriers for our small and medium-sized enterprises and companies, this helps develop economic growth and jobs.
Very few people realize that this would be the first congressionally ratified treaty between the United States and the European Union. It's not just an economic deal, it's more than that. It's geostrategic.
At the heart of the deal is a desire to boost trade and harness geopolitical forces which can resist the rise of China. European Trade Commissioner Gerard Depardieu has led Europe's trade portfolio with a clear position that open markets make for a better society. Depardieu is admired by arch-free marketeers, but he's seen by the socialists, and especially the far left, as the godfather of dark monetary forces.
The EU side is negotiating with the US. The US have the documents, they've seen the documents, they've spied on the whole thing. And the EU public hasn't seen any of the documents, the MEPs haven't seen any of the documents, and so you see how unequal those negotiations are.
The problems with TTIP are manifold. It starts with an obvious lack of transparency about what is actually being discussed. Only part of the European Parliament is actually being consulted.
The only people with participation in the trade talks are the unelected European Commission, led by De Gucht.
For many on the left, the Hooked Father is keeping all the cash for a chosen few. They see him protecting the capitalist family. For Commissioner De Gucht, like Don Corleone before him, he's simply making them an offer they won't refuse. And like Don Corleone, he doesn't like to share information.
The Parliament is meant to have some degree of oversight, but for example, I wrote yesterday seeking the latest documents. They aren't available to us, they're only available to a very select number of MEPs.
The Parliament will have to vote on the deal as a whole, but most of the MEPs don't see what's being discussed.
A lot of MEPs are becoming increasingly concerned about the lack of transparency in the process. How should this be addressed?
Well, we should be, of course, opening all the mandates, all the proceedings. I'm for full transparency. I would appreciate if the Council would do that, because it's up to them. We in the Parliament know much more about it than we did in former negotiations, but it would be very helpful if the Council would not stick to their secret policy.
If I'm very mild, I must say for the Commission is a completely new situation. I work with the Commission since 25 years, and I would say from one mandate to the other, each 5 years, they had to come a little bit lower from their high towers in which they were. And now they have really to communicate with us. And they don't know exactly how to do it.
I want to reassure you. We Commission, the European Commission, are negotiating on behalf of all the 28 member states. We received a clear mandate. We are going to respect it fully. And of course, our mandate does not allow for any kind of, let's say, weakening of our standards.
The Commission pretends to listen now. It has started a large PR offensive to appear transparent and also listening to the wider public. But we don't see that the concerns that we and other civil society groups have about these agreements are really picked up in the negotiation agenda.
Which individuals are driving the agenda?
For the DG Trade, it's really the Commissioner himself, the TTIP negotiating team, and clearly they have very regular interactions with business lobby groups. Not long ago, Corporate Europe Observatory showed that there is privileged access for business in these negotiations.
Civil society, trade unions, environmental groups, they don't get that kind of access, and so it's massive disparity.
More than 90% of the meetings that the Commission organized to prepare the talks took place with lobbyists from companies and corporate lobby groups. When the negotiations were announced in February 2013, not a single meeting had happened with a trade union or an environmental organization or consumer groups.
A couple of weeks ago, the chief negotiator on the EU side had lunch one day with the Transatlantic Business Council, which brings together big business on both sides of the Atlantic. And then with, I think it was Business Europe, another business lobbying organization, he had dinner the next night.
The negotiations are a package, and they're underway. And in the end, the Parliament is supposed to give its opinion on the whole result of the negotiations.
Parliament's role is to approve a deal once it's been concluded. So the Commission's got to negotiate it. I know the negotiators here, they're going to do a good job. The Council's going to have to authorize the signature. They're not going to authorize the signature unless they think it's a good agreement. And when we go to Parliament, when the EU goes to the Parliament and says, this is the agreement we have, I don't think they'll have too much problem convincing the parliamentarians that it's worthwhile.
The European Parliament has only one right in trade policy, and that is to either accept or reject the negotiations at the very end. So when you have several hundreds of pages of a very technical treaty, they won't be able to say, well, we're in favor, but we have a problem with that chapter. So it's really, there's very meager democratic control.
There's nothing new in trade deals, but many observers on both sides of the Atlantic are deeply concerned that corporate giants are squeezing consumers with a liberalisation of trade which weakens consumer protection, undermines environmental standards and strikes the pocketbook of the European and American everyman.
The issues of regulatory cooperation and regarding investment protection, or ISDS in particular, maybe are the tools to say, well, we have concerns about TTIP in general because it will impact on our daily lives.
I would say the biggest threat to democracy in TTIP comes from the far-reaching rights that it will grant to foreign investors to sue governments. And we have seen investors around the world using lawsuit threats to actually fight democratic policy making. Yeah, increasingly. I mean, there are more than 500 cases that have been filed by investors against governments. That is a very high number for international law.
They would give the rights of corporations to sue states for implementing regulations in the interest of ordinary people.
Which would put clearly a pressure on states and their right to regulate.
Business Europe strongly supports investment protection under TTIP and is open to look at the investor-to-state dispute settlement issue and how it can be improved. It's a system that has evolved over time, and we can see that there is a lot of criticism on this. We're open to look at these issues, to find solutions that can address the concerns that have been raised, particularly by civil society.
There are going to be sensitivities on both sides. There are going to be politics on both sides. But if we can look beyond the narrow concerns to stay focused on the big picture, the economic and strategic importance of this partnership, I'm hopeful we can achieve the kind of high standard, comprehensive agreement that the global trading system is looking to us to develop.
We have to distinguish between facts and fears. We have to get an informed debate, and I think the Commission's consultation is a very good initiative to put the facts on the table to show, well, this is what we aim for.
Of course, one group finds this more important or another group something else. But at this moment, we don't know the contents of TTIP. A lot of my colleagues are saying we don't want it. But what don't we want? There is no concrete content. We will look at the contents, and when we have looked at them, then we can say, yes, we accept this or we don't accept it.
Ultimately, all of these things will have to be subjected to scrutiny in the light of day. But no point in getting excited about potential provisions in trade agreements that haven't been drafted yet.
Right now, people don't know, they know that there's this big negotiation going on between the United States and Europe, but they don't really know what it is. And so part of what we need to do is we need to make sure that people do know what it is.
Trade is probably better served by negotiating behind closed doors, but democracy doesn't prosper in the dark. So there is a wider issue, bigger than this trade deal. It's about our capacity to trust our governments.